Alright, well, sorry about that. Disadvantage of being at home in your studio is that phone rings sometimes. It screws you off. I have cats as well. So you never know if one of those guys will become bounding through here deciding they want to be part of this whole process. Alright, on to figure number 3. Again, the same thing. Taking my same blue-brown mixture, which is mostly sepia, a little bit of burnt sienna, and a phthalo, or that faience blue that we were talking about earlier. At this point, to me, it's still very important that I keep with the same colors that I was using in the background, because I want to make sure those colors are repeated and harmonized and feel like they are a part of the painting. So now would be a bad time to switch to a purple or a pink or a green, something that isn't in the sky, something that I haven't used before. And if you do go that way, just be aware that it might look a little goofy because my eye is going to want to try to find that color again. It's going to want to see that repeated somewhere to know that it belongs. And if you don't repeat it, my eye will go right to that spot. That may not be a bad thing. We're always told it's a bad thing and you have to repeat it. But if you don't repeat it, your eye can go right to that spot because it's different. And I refer to this in my book called The Odd Man Outs Theory, or aspect of painting. You create a discord or a dissonance or something in there that doesn't quite seem right, and my brain wants to identify it, so it goes there and starts to look at that. A really good example, particularly in winter scenes, is a red toque. A red toque, a red jacket, a red scarf, something red, which is really, really powerful color and should be used sparingly, will have that idea. You've got a cool setting. You might have a snowy winter day. You're walking, taking your dog down for a walk down along the alleyway or the roadway there, and everything is blue and gray and quiet, and here's this little splash, this tiny little splash of red. Your eye will be drawn to that. And again, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. If that's where you want me to go, if you want me to see that figure, then that's just another form of contrast that is available to you to use. That white's awfully, awfully strong. Let's just kind of knock that down there before we get too crazy with it. On this particular horse, because I've got a white face here and lots of pinto pattern or grayish pattern up in here that we'll clean up, I am not going to bring the same pinto pattern into here. I'm going to leave him just as a brown horse. This back up into here we were playing with a bit more. Let's clean that up again. I'm going to take that white out. For now, I'll see. I'll make a decision later on whether I want to pop that in there. On both of these individuals, I want to just kind of just put a dark into there just to sort of begin to suggest the hair. Again, early stages of roughing this in. I'm not going to be too concerned with the details at this point. I do want to get the figures in there and see how they're going to play off against the background. I do have some concerns at this point that they're not going to be bright enough or dark enough or strong enough just in there, but we're going to carry on with our objective. I think the landscape is solid. I think that the composition is good. It could just be a question of my choices of lights and darks or values into here, but I'm going to block these in and we'll start to develop them a little bit. We'll let it dry and then we'll pick up that third stage where we start integrating that, and that's where if it's going to snow, we'll make it snow there. It's a very poor tail. Let's get that out of there. There we go. That's a better tail. And scrubbing a little bit. And move to the front. and establish the head. Again, at all of this stage into here, you'll see that there's very little modeling, there's very little development of the figures themselves. We've established a large dominant value pattern. We're going to play a little bit with some of the anatomy, make that feel and look a little bit better. But at this point, we're just looking to establish those figures, get them in there. And when it dries, then we can start playing with a bit more detail. All right, let's zip out here a bit more. There we go. Working in on the last rider now. Again, there's that white blaze on the front of the horse. That works out nicely. Great opportunity here for, again, that pinto pattern. So we're just going to start to block that in very quickly. Separate the feet. There's a nice leg. Trim that down. Whiten that up. And again, the same thing on this one here. We're not going to duplicate that pattern, but we are going to take advantage of what the white can do and separate that, really help that chest of that horse stand out from the background back there. Okay. And here, figures, just going to ground that into here. Again, the leg. And maybe we'll end up with a hide or blanket or something over their legs just to help soften that aspect of that. But again, we're just looking at blocking that in. Not happy with that, so we're going to pull that back a bit. Soften that throat a bit. There we go. All right. Take this guy's face, not quite so white. Some hairs back along up into here. Quiver. And there is our early beginnings of our figures into here. While we're at it, that's drying. I'm going to take a little bit more of this white again, and we're going to hit this again here. Some dry brushing here. You can hear it scuffing the tooth of the paper. My tulip brush. I'm just going to bring that back up into here. Start integrating this white shape into some of these other shapes back up into here, tying that all together. And let's go out. And there we are. Pull that back, and we're just going to straighten that out there a bit for you. Alright, so a few things I see here as I look back on that still have to get fixed is this area here. This has to extend past. It can't be left there. So I'm just going to soften that, make a little bit more of a lighter transitional edge. That's a little bit better there. Not happy with that, but that'll get hidden by the mat. I think I'm going to bring in here, and we'll see that at the latter stages, but it's going to look a little like this right now. I want to bring in a few whites down the line here. So again, taking my opaque gesso, I want to take a few whites, and I want to start working off of this one. And I'm going to do a few little dots and dashes into here just to suggest that you can peek through some of these trees here a little bit more, and you can catch that bit of light coming through there. I'm going to bring you over on top of that there. There we are. So we're in this area right up into here, and we're just going to add a few little crisp whites, and maybe these whites are a little bit too strong, but we'll play with that. But this is what an opaque white or a Chinese white or a gouache can do for you. You can add those little bits of white back, and you could try scrubbing and scraping and scratching all that out of there if you want to. I mean, that's fine. But for me, I just like to paint those in there because it gives me such a nice transition. And it adds that other dimensions. I mean, oil painters and acrylic painters do this all the time, right? Because they use white paint. But for some of us in the watercolor industry, we've been told that we can't. And I always kind of wonder why that is, you know. But again, as we stated at the outset, I'm just in to make the best picture that I can. And if it means that I have to go and use devices like this, then so be it. Right now the white seems fairly intense, and I think that has a lot to do with the water in there. But we're just going to pull that back. There we are. So that's it pretty much at the end of stage 2. We're going to come back at it here again pretty quick, and we're going to play a little bit with the figures, a little bit more, detailing those up. But for now, we're just going to let that dry. We'll catch you in a few minutes.